to the Across the Pod NFL podcast. We're here for our second divisional round game preview, and this time it's a turn of the Dallas Cowboys taking on the San Francisco 49ers. And with me, I've got a returning guest from last week's episode. Back with me is 49ers fan Paul. How are you, mate?
I'm feeling Purdy damn good, Andy. Purdy damn good, buddy. Thanks for having me back on again.
Well, you've used that joke twice now, so I think you need a new joke for next week.
While it works, Brock Purdy's the man.
Keep
I
it
used to
rolling,
say,
yeah.
I used to say, feeling great, baby, but Jimmy G vibes, and I can see Scott thinking, "Oh God, it's going to be a long show with this chap."
And then on the flip side, we didn't get a Cowboys fan on last week when we had Murph on for the Buccaneers episode, but we have a Cowboys fan with us this week. You may know him from the Irish Punt. This is Scott McCabe. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for the intro there, Andy. Appreciate it. Yeah, ready to talk some ball and ready to boast about how good the Dallas Cowboys really are and why they're going to win this game, because I don't feel the love. I don't feel like we're getting enough love, and I think we deserve it. So I can't wait to get into this one. But thanks for having me on.
So, American listeners listening, the UK Cowboys fans are as annoying as the American fans. So are as confident about their team as those American fans are. Speaking of your fandom, Scott, we'd like to ask all of our new guests similar questions when they first appear on the show. What made you a Dallas Cowboys fan?
It's a very good question. So my dad is a Chiefs fan, and I didn't really want anything to do with the Alex Smith era because they weren't very good back then. So I was like, I'm not going to follow them. And I was 14. We went on a trip across America, and we stopped off in AT&T Stadium. And from that moment onward, seeing the stadium, seeing the bright lights, seeing Jerry World itself in person, life-changing moment. So from then on, I've been a Cowboys fan. I stayed up very late. I remember I was in school the next day to watch Ezekiel Elliott be drafted, and Dak Prescott come in. I'll never forget that rookie year that the two of them had. They were on fire. I wouldn't say Zeke's on fire right now, but Dak certainly is. So but that's where it all started, age of 14. And to be honest though, I haven't seen my team make it to an NFC championship in my lifetime. So it'd be quite nice to see that this week. So we'll see.
Well, I've not seen my team win a playoff game, so I think count yourself lucky in that sense. Have you been on the stadium tour at the AT&T Stadium?
Yeah, we went to the stadium tour. At the time, it was Tony Romo, Jason Witten. You had your big name guys, Des Bryant. Des caught it as well, as I like to call it. But it was a great experience, and from then on, it's just been like something I've been obsessed with, and seeing the team. But I mean, talk about ups and downs. That's been the definition of the Cowboys throughout the number of years. It's been painful for us fans. We feel like we're on the cusp of something, and we just don't quite make it. So last year I was quite crazy with a few of my predictions. The last time the Cowboys played the 49ers, I was so confident that the Cowboys were going to win that I said if the Cowboys lost, I would jump into the Irish Sea wearing nothing but a cowboy hat. We all know how that ended. The Cowboys did lose that game, and I nearly got frostbite, but I didn't. I survived. And it was a, you know what? I learned my lesson not to be overly confident in your team. So I'm confident, but I'm not overly confident coming into this weekend.
Is there footage on Twitter or Instagram of this jump at all? Can anyone
Unfortunately,
find
there
this?
is footage of the jump. Yeah, there is. And I don't think that'll ever leave me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to. I went there this season. Went to the Colts game, the one where you won by so many points. Went to the stadium tour the next day, and I think for anyone who didn't watch my Eurotrips video, where I did rank NFL stadiums for atmosphere, I had that stadium in the elite category because I just found it extraordinary. I mean, I knew about it for years. I always wanted to go there ever since watching Jack Mate and Will Brazier go there on YouTube for sport, and just watching that, being there, and I mean, just the atmosphere. I went to a lot of stadiums this year, and a lot of them were either really good atmosphere and not the best stadium, but and sometimes other way around, good stadium but not the best atmosphere. But this had both for me, and I think if you're a Cowboys fan listening or watching on YouTube this episode, I think you have to go to that stadium at some point because it's really good, and I think that it is. And obviously went to the stadium tour as well, got to go on the pitch, caught a touchdown in the end zone, did a little gritty. It was amazing. So really good. And I've always sort of had a soft spot for the Cowboys anyway, but I think certainly that helped that case even more so. And is there like a favorite player currently, or maybe whether they've left, so past or
Oh,
present? Who just
Cowboys.
is the one player? Yeah, for your team, who's been your favorite player since you followed the team all those years ago?
all those years ago, well, that's a very good question. I mean, I would say Zeke because I saw him get drafted. I saw his journey. I remember watching it with my dodgy laptop when I was, like 16, and it was buffering and everything. So I'd say Zeke. Jason Witten, I used to love watching him play. Des Bryant, all those kind of old guys that you just look at and go, wow. But I'd say right now it's got to be Micah Parsons. Anytime he's on the pitch, he makes a difference. You can see it. You can see it in the team. I believe he's a generational talent, and watching him is always fun. So I'd say Zeke and Micah Parsons would be my top two guys I'd probably follow. Zeke would probably just edge it though.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I think he's been one of my favourite players in the last few years since the running backs. I think Todd Gurley always stands tall for me. Derrick Henry's getting close there now, but I think Zeke Elliott, I mean, ever since I've been watching the NFL, he's always been the guy, and I think that it's a shame to see him declining. But I think with Tony Pollard, coming in now, I think it's given Zeke almost a new lease of life. And I think now he's, as of almost a second choice back, I think he certainly has had a somewhat good season. So I think hopefully he can be the hero in the rest of the playoffs. Going into the game, obviously the Cowboys go into it as the 5th seed after beating the 4th seed Buccaneers in the last round. And then also the 49ers go into this game off the back of a win against the Seahawks after a troubling first half or so. They got the win in the end, and they come in as the 2nd seed. Looking at the stats as well, the 49ers in the regular season still led the way with the most yards per game allowed, whereas the Cowboys were 12th. The 49ers have the 2nd best run defense, whereas the Cowboys have the 22nd best, which I think could be a potential key factor in this game. And looking at offensively as well, very similar numbers, 13th and 14th in passing offense respectively, 7th and 8th when it comes to the running game, 6th and 3rd respectively when it comes to the points they scored, and then 5th and 11th respectively cut into yards per game. So very evenly matched when it comes to offensively. We'll go to you first, Paul. First of all, your thoughts on the win last week after you predicted a win in the last episode we did, but also, you come up against a much better opposition than the Seahawks and the Cowboys, particularly looking at the defensive side of things. How you mentioned Brock Purdy at the start. He looked a bit nervous in the first half. What's your take on how he can perform in this game?
Well, I just want to start off by saying, Scott, you have to be optimistic with your team. It's what makes us fans. Similar to your journey, I remember watching Brian Hoyer. I remember watching a 2-14 season. So we're getting excited as 49er fans about Brock Purdy. Andy, you follow me on social media, you'll have seen the never-ending story of Jimmy G, Trey Lance, Jimmy G, Trey Lance. I'll be honest, when Brock Purdy came in, I didn't have high hopes. He was a 7th-round pick. I just wanted to get through that game against your Miami Dolphins. I was a bit critical of Brock in that game. When I went back and watched the game tape, I didn't like how he was rushing around. He didn't work through his progressions. And then every week, he just gets better and better. And as a fan of the 49ers, our defense has been up there all season as elite, but our offense has got better and better. And how can you not get excited watching this team? I mean, to answer your first question, I was at a mini meet in Stockton-on-Tees on Saturday. So there was 4 or 5 49er fans. There was a Seahawks fan. There was a couple of other fans dotted around. I wasn't worried at halftime. The 49ers didn't play particularly well. The Seahawks played to the best of their ability and were only up by 1 point. And we came out firing on all cylinders. We could have put 60 points on the Seahawks. And I know Seahawks fans listening probably are saying, oh, yeah, you're saying that now. We won that game with ease. Now, I am excited for this game on Sunday. The Cowboys are not a hated rival of mine. So when I got into the sport, Scott, I used to live in Darlington, and I have a good friend, Chris Pollard, who's a Cowboys fan. He was one of the people who got me into the NFL. And we used to do NFL Sundays at my house. And I remember a few years ago, the Cowboys rolled into Levi's when Zeke was Zeke, and you absolutely tore us a new one. Yeah. Now, I am confident going into this game because I think my 49ers are better than they were last year. I remember sitting here this time last year thinking, oh, God, we're going up against the number 1 offense. Jimmy G wasn't looking great with his shoulder. We only really had Deebo Samuel. I look at this game on Sunday night and I think CMC, that has to be the hands-down best in-season trade the NFL has ever seen. You've got George Kittle firing on all cylinders. You've got Deebo Samuel coming off a big game. I mean, obviously he had that injury. He came back against the Cardinals. He didn't look great. but it was a case of the calm before the storm, because we all saw what Debo did on Saturday against those Seahawks. We're fired up. It's prime time. It's the lights at Levi's. It's this rivalry, like you said, Andy, straight away you think of the catch. And I think of my own fandom, and I think of the Dallas Cowboys. Second year in a row, the 49ers are preparing to face the Cowboys in the playoffs. But I'm confident, but equally, Scott, there's no hate on this side from me. My friend Chris has already been exchanging messages. He, like you, loves Micah Parsons. I'm obviously biased on this side, saying Nick Bosa's the better player. You're obviously going to come at me with your viewpoint. But yeah, we can't take this Cowboys team lightly. Pollard has impressed me this year. I had him in many of my fantasy teams. Purely as a handcuff option at the start. And then each week he kept getting me more and more points. And I thought, why do I want to play him more? I'm a big fan of CD Lamb, Micah Parsons, like you said. For me, looking at the Cowboys team, Andy, slightly worried for them for the offensive line. I know they've had a couple of injuries. I know they're rejigging that around. And we all know in the playoffs, the game's won and lost in the trenches. And whilst Dak did look good against the Buccaneers, I think that's probably one of the worst playoff teams I've ever seen. And Mr. Brady, I mean, come on. That's what we get thrown at us, Scott. Oh, you've played nobody. Look at the opposition you've played against. But we are not taking this team lightly. For me, we've had 2 extra days to prepare for the Cowboys. We didn't need to watch the game tape on the Buccaneers because we already battered them a couple of weeks ago. So I think Kyle Shanahan has fully got this game on his radar, even before we knew we were playing you boys.
Yeah, and if your mate, if he hasn't got a Tony Pollard jersey, I don't know what he's doing, because if you've got a star player with the exact same surname as him, I think it's like the Andrew Manning from Franchise Tag podcast. If he hasn't got an Eli Manning Giants top, then there's something wrong. But yeah, I think Brock, looking at, you mentioned before, beating quite easy opposition. Looking at the schedule you had, I mean, the teams you beat, the Rams who had 5 wins, the Panthers who had 6, 7 wins. Obviously Rams again, you had to beat the Cardinals. The Saints did make the playoffs. You beat the Buccaneers, who were not a great playoff team. You beat the Seahawks, the Commanders, the Raiders. So it's not as if Purdy has played anyone really, maybe except Miami, who's really been a team that's people fearing. So I think Purdy faces a massive test for me now in this game. How can he handle a team with Micah Parsons, a team with Leighton Van Der Esch, a team with all these players on defense? I think that for me is a big thing. Purdy, as great as he's been, we all seen players who start their careers off really well. Drew Lock is my classic example. 5 games in 2020, I think it was, or 2019, 7 touchdowns, 3 picks. So I think a lot of quarterbacks do start off their careers quite well. I think Purdy, this is a big test for him now. He has to, if he can perform well in this game, then I think he is the real deal. But I can see that's the one key thing I think that the Cowboys can capitalize on to win this game. I think if they can put pressure on Purdy and make him uncomfortable, make him nervous, and I think putting Micah Parsons, if he can get through that O-line, I think that for me, if he can get through that, I think that's a real feather in his cap, and I think that's a sign potentially that he is going to be the guy going forward. Back over to you, Scott. First of all, Dak Prescott. I mean, I've mentioned on the podcast before, I've been one of his biggest critics. He's not turned up in a big game, and I will say he was sensational Monday night, but it was a game where the Buccaneers were terrible, and I think I still want to see him in a situation where they're 5 points down, 2-minute warning's just gone, 40-yard drive, win the game, and I think that's not something I've really seen yet from Dak. So in terms of this game, I think there will be a point. I can't see it not being the case where he isn't in a situation like this or something of similar nature. What's your take on Dak and that sort of general dynamic that people have about Dak is his big game ability? What's your take on him going into this game?
Yeah, I think honestly, Andy, coming into this game, I was chatting to friends, pals, NFL guys, anyone who was sort of following the Dak Prescott this season and previous seasons. And for a lot of it, we just, as Cowboys fans, even myself, I don't know what to make of him. I really don't. I'm like, one week he'll come out and you'll be like, that's why we paid him a huge contract. That's why we secured him. And then you'll get a performance like in the last week of the regular season against the Washington Commanders where you're sitting there and you're like, the offense can put up literally like 6 points. That's it. That's all we're getting. That's all we're getting out of our multi-million-dollar quarterback. It's simply not good enough. So I think last week was a big game changer for us in terms of what we were expecting and how things were going to go. I didn't know going into that game if it would be Dak's last game, and that's very bold of me to say. But I think if he had a howler, if he had an absolute shocker, threw for 2, maybe even 3 interceptions, 3 or 4, Cowboys fans will be calling for a mix-up or for answers because it's unacceptable. And it would have been. But the way that Dak came out, he was 25 for 33, threw for 4 touchdowns, looked sensational, like you said. And I'm hearing a lot of this, like, oh, the Buccaneers were awful. We got to look at it as well. Were the Buccaneers really bad, or were Dallas actually very, very good and simply outclassed their opponent? And you can't have it both ways with fans going into this going, Brady, 7-0 against the Cowboys. He can make it 8-0. Brady still got it. But it's playoff Brady, and that's why they're going to win this game. And they're the home team, and there's all these things going in the Bucs' favor. So as much as, yes, the Buccaneers weren't good. They were a sub 500 team coming into this season. Finishing the season. They had a losing record. They only made that, the playoffs because of how bad their division was. This is a Buccaneers team that couldn't get the run game going. So Dallas knew exactly what they had to do. And it was to get old man Brady to throw the ball 40, 50 times. And when you can plan for that, your game script's a lot easier with the defense, especially Dan Quinn and our defensive coordinator with his mind and his great defensive mind and the players that he has. He knew exactly how to utilize them in order to suffocate Brady in the pocket and in the passing game, which we did. Our cornerbacks, they were so tight. They were so good in that game. I was so impressed. And, Brady, you're watching that game and Brady's driving and you're like, okay, here we go. The comeback's on. Brady throws an interception. Boom. There goes the momentum. So from what I've seen from the Cowboys last week and what I saw from Dak last week, going into this game, I am confident, much more confident than I would have been had you asked me this 2 weeks ago. If you told me you're facing the 49ers 2 weeks ago, I would have gone, okay, we're a little stuck. I think the key to this one is turning the ball over and us being secure with it. Like we saw the difference it made in the Seahawks game. When they turned that ball over to the 49ers ran with it and they ran home with it. The difference in this one is we need to try and get Brock Purdy to turn the ball over. And we've been pretty good at turning the ball over, getting teams to turn the ball over with interceptions. I mean, we're ranked 3rd in the NFL in turnover differential. So we are good. We can do it. But it's going to be a task with Purdy, and we have got to get to him early, get him under pressure. Like you said, build up we got to build it up as much as we can for him. The 49ers and the teammates are going to play down the scenario. No, it's just another game. No, it ain't. This game is history. There's a lot of history in this game. Cowboys fans want this victory. We need to build it up, make sure the situation gets to him, the bright lights, prime time, and just try and put him under pressure. Because honestly, I'm watching Brock Purdy as a Cowboys fan, but also as a football fan. And you watch that guy go to the sideline and sit down. He's got a Brady aura. I know it's early with him, but he has an aura where he looks locked in. When he makes a mistake, he's locked in, he's ready to go. And that kind of scares me. I won't lie. Whereas sometimes I see with Dak, it's nearly too quick. And that's what the whole talk was of Mike McCarthy. He was like, Dak Prescott was moving too quick. He was making too many decisions in that Washington game. And that's why we struggled on offense. If you watch Dak against the Buccaneers, he took his time in the pocket. He chose each and every pass so carefully. And that was what ultimately won us the game, because we didn't turn the ball over. And if anything, we just found our open guys. So now saying that, our offensive line was very, very good against the Buccaneers. I was impressed with how it performed. You cannot compare the Buccaneers defense to this number 1 ranked 49ers defense with the king on the other side, Nick Bosa. I'm not even going to sit here and argue that I'm not going to argue with you, Paul, that Micah Parsons is better than Nick Bosa. Not this season. Nick Bosa he's in his prime, and you can see it week in, week out. So we've got a task on our hands there. If we keep Dak upright, he keeps his head, we get away early, I think we have a chance.
Yeah.
Before you jump in, Andy, I just want to clarify, Scott. I've had it thrown at me all year that we've played no one. So it was my one opportunity to come on and say those Buccaneers were awful. But to be fair, Andy, I am a fan of Parsons, and my friend who is a Cowboys fan, we have ribbed him with getting that jersey. But like you said, you've spoke very well there, Scott. Things you were saying. Brock Purdy, I was a little bit sceptical of the first game, and I'm part of the 49 Faithful UK, and the hype train has left that station, the Brock Express, because, like you said, the game against the Seahawks last week, Andy, Brock struggled, but getting him out of the pocket, he still looked good, Scott. He didn't make mistakes. He didn't do a Jimmyism. Jimmy G had a bad throw in him, and like you said, the thing with Brock, it's looking scary how good. You look at the Dolphins, look at Andy's team. Your QB was drafted before Brock this year. Pretty sure you'd like to reverse those picks, Andy, if you had that choice.
Yeah, I think if we had Brock Purdy, I think we'd have won that game. I think if we'd had my dad as quarterback. I think he might actually probably too strong, but I think actually I said he did all right. Actually, I will say he did okay, but I think it's that one 3rd and 19 play. I think will haunt him. I think, and that's But I do think if Tua played that game, we'd have won that game, and I think that's not even in doubt. But play him next year, I don't think we're going to see Josh Allen make the same mistakes again. So I do think that was our one chance to beat the Bills in the playoffs. You mentioned there Nick Bosa, Paul, of course, the offensive line, obviously the battle between the trenches. Jason Peters is currently questionable looking at the current injury report. So not sure what the latest is on him. So in terms of that is obviously on Brock Purdy's blind side as well. Sorry, Dak Prescott's blind side. So in terms of that, does that give you even more confidence, Paul, that your defense could potentially get to the quarterback multiple times?
Nick Bosa had arguably his quietest game of the season, but King Charles stepped up. And the 49ers don't make any bones about what we are on defense. We rush the front four. We don't need to send the house. You beat the pass rush. You get after our secondary. That's what the Seahawks try to do. Lenore has been identified as a weak link, but Lenore played really well on Saturday. And I'm feeling happy, Andy, because on our show, I called a bold prediction that Lenore would have an interception. It would be against Lockett. And at the time, people laughed at me. People kept the receipts. And when Lenore intercepted that one, I was like, see, just watch the game tape. Mooney Ward had a bad game last week, which for me was good because I want him to bounce back this week. Armstead and Kinlaw have been massive over the last few weeks. You cannot underestimate what they bring to stopping that run game. And likewise, Scott, I think maybe if Dak turns the ball over a couple of times, if we're stopping your run game and Dak does Dak things, which we've seen, which is a fair critique. I'm going to call that we intercept Dak twice on Sunday night, and I think that could be the game changer. I think we win the turnover battle. I just think that this defense is firing on all cylinders. Our offensive line has got better and better. I think a lot of people overlook the fact that we should have had Trey Lance under centre. So our O-line trained all off-season for a mobile quarterback. Now, Brock Purdy isn't your mobile quarterback like your Lamar Jackson, like your Colin Kaepernick, but he can get out the pocket and you see the O-line blocking. And in Kyle Shanahan's offense, it isn't just the O-line. Go back to that Debo touchdown. Brandon Ayuk is right out in front, and the block he puts on lets Debo get in. If you don't block in Kyle Shanahan's offense, doesn't want to know. And that's why Ayuk was in the doghouse a couple of years ago. And I just think we're more dangerous on both sides of the ball. I think the Seattle first half, Seattle threw everything at us, and give Seattle a credit. I didn't expect to be losing at halftime. But for me, Dan Quinn versus Kyle Shanahan is an understated battle in this one. They know each other very well, but Kyle Shanahan is very good at showing you a play and then having further options off those players. And you go and you watch the breakdown from Brian Baldinger and all the people on Twitter, Andy, and you just look, Kyle Shanahan with CMC. It's just a dangerous offense. So I'm feeling very confident. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I think Vegas had the over-under at 46, which means they're looking at like a 24-21 victory. I don't see that. I see it being a lot more than that. And I see it being a great game for the neutral. I'm just gutted it isn't the NFC Championship game, because that's what I called at the start of the season, because I wanted that rivalry back. It's not the rivalry for me. The Seahawks is my hated rivals purely because they beat us ever since I've become an NFL fan. Scott, I hated them for that reason. And the Cowboys, I have a friend who's a Cowboys fan. We watch games together, but some lads in the 49er group, this is their big rivalry because of the stuff that's happened in the past. So, yeah, I'm confident going to this game. We're healthy at the right time. I think we're only missing Thomas and Jimmy G when I look at the practice report. It's a bit difficult in the UK because it's Thursday night. And obviously the game's not till Sunday, so I think we'll get a full picture tomorrow of whether Jason Peters will play or whether there's injuries on the line. But yeah, I'm feeling confident, Andy.
And before we do go into our break, before we then go on to our predictions, the one thing, I mean, I'm fully aware that the regular season is a lot different to the postseason, but I mentioned before, the 49ers are the 21st best pass defense. So they're not, they're second best run defense. They've allowed the least points and stuff like that. So do you think that is maybe one area where you could get to the 49ers? We saw the Seahawks at times do this in the game last weekend, and of course with Michael Gallup now back in the mix, as well as obviously CeeDee Lamb. Is that somewhere where you think that's the one area of weakness, the defense, that maybe you could get to, especially with Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb and Gallup, that could help you win this game?
Yeah, no, it has to be. I think when you analyze the Cowboys and the moves that they've made, there was a lot of Odell Beckham talk. We all heard it, and as Cowboys fans, it's all you heard for a couple of months, and it was like, Odell, I want to go to somewhere that I'm going to win and this and that. Well, that didn't happen, but we got a great alternative in T.Y. Hilton, and what a game changer he I wouldn't say single-handedly, but he made a few huge plays that put us in a winning position against the Buccaneers. So it's not just, I mean, we were talking about Ezekiel Elliott earlier, but Zeke is still a top 5 running back in terms of touchdowns in the regular season. He's got 12 on the year. He can punch it in. So I think in the passing game as well, that's when Tony Pollard comes alive. You're throwing screens to him or whatever it might be. So the passing game needs to be on its A+ for us, and we need Dak to be consistent. Dak is tied for the most interceptions in the league with Davis Mills. That's not good enough. You can't be throwing 15 interceptions and on the regular season and go up against his 49ers defense and throw 3. So I understand the prediction for the interception there, Paul. The stat would lean that way, but I think coming off that, Dak has all the confidence in the world right now, judging by how he played and how great he really was. So I'm excited to see what he can do and go out there and win this game. Dalton Schultz also needs to be mentioned. 2 touchdowns for him in the last game. He's turning into a very, very reliable option and has been for a number of years. So I think the passing game is where this game is going to be won. And I think Dallas do have the weapons to do it, just like the 49ers do. But I think the difference in this game and what it's going to come down to is a rookie quarterback versus a veteran quarterback who's been here before, and heartbreak last year with what happened with that QB draw, awful timing. It was a mess. I feel we're more, how do we even say it? We're just more settled is what I'd say, the quarterback position. And that is the only weak spot. And it's not even a weak spot on this 49ers team, but the only question mark that I even have is Brock Purdy. Whereas in the Cowboys team, I feel confident all rounds. I do. I feel good about all the pieces that are there. If they can perform at that high level, we need to see. But I think the Cowboys can do this.
Okay, and we'll find out after the break what these two think will happen in the game. Welcome back. I'm still here with sports journalist Scott McCabe and 49ers faithful UK's Paul Hope. Before we do give our predictions, I want to hit you guys with a fact today. I was very lucky to be a guest on the Sam Walls podcast this week, and he hit me with a very good fact that I found very interesting. So, obviously, Dak Prescott was a 4th-round quarterback. Purdy, as everyone knows, was the last pick in this year's draft. So, the average draft pick of the AFC quarterbacks left in the playoffs is 5th overall. The average draft position of the NFC quarterbacks is 114th.
Whoa.
Now, I don't know whether he was including the ones that got knocked out, but I think you look at Mahomes was 10th overall, Burrow, Lawrence number 1, Allen number 7, and obviously with the NFC you've got, obviously you mentioned Purdy and Dak. Jalen Hurts was he was 1st round, was he 2nd round, 3rd? I can't think where he was now, Jalen Hurts. And the 4th one is named, who was the 4th quarterback in this NFC? Who am I missing?
Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones, yeah, he was 6th overall. So I found it very interesting the difference in level of quarterbacks. I mean, Everyone knows the AFC's got the quarterbacks that everyone knows the level of those quarterbacks. I think that definitely shows a slight difference in I won't say quality because they're all very good quarterbacks at this level, but maybe the pre-draft hype is definitely more so with these AFC quarterbacks.
It's funny, all that's when you look at it with those stats and everything, but personally, from my view, I think the NFC is stronger in this. I really do. I do. I think these teams, you look at the Giants, they're such a ground and pound team. They play hard football. That's a different game we can get onto at some point. But no, I do. I like the talent on the I think an NFC team is going to win the Super Bowl. I really do.
Great.
Yeah, I do like the Chiefs to win it. I did pick them at the start of the year, but I think the Chiefs will make it. Now I'm just going Super Bowl predictions. This was supposed to be game predictions, but I like the Chiefs to go the distance. But from the NFC, I just think there's a lot of good solid teams in the NFC, and you have to look at the NFC East as well as a division. I mean, you've 3 teams in there in this stage of the playoffs, like the divisional rounds. That is nearly unheard of. So credit to the NFC. I think you got to give it there, but that is quite a crazy stat. Thanks for that. I like that.
Well, don't thank me. Thank Sam Moores. I'm sure. I think the episode, I'm guessing it's out now. It might be out by this time this podcast is released. But yeah, it's had a chat with him about the last round and the current round and future on. But yeah, that stat I found very, very, very fascinating. But now it's time for the final part of the podcast, which is our prediction episode or prediction part of the episode. So we're going to give both fans a chance to predict who they think is going to win, and then I'll give my stake afterwards. So Paul, back to you first. Who's going to win this game?
Be no surprise to anybody listening and calling the 49ers win. Now, you're in luck tonight, Andy, because we're recording the 49er Faithful UK pod straight after this. So I'm going to be allowed to give out the information because normally they say, oh, don't give it out until you've done our pod. Now, I'm going for a 49ers to win 38-24. I believe, as I said earlier, Dak Prescott with 2 interceptions. I think Bosa gets 2 sacks. I think we see a big game for Brandon Ayuk this week. I think Brock and Ayuk is understated. I mean, if he'd pulled that one in last week, that would have been the catch of the year for me. So 2 touchdowns for Ayuk. And like I said, I think it's going to be 38-24. And my controversy is that the Cowboys' points come in garbage time. So like I said, I don't think Vegas have got this right with the over-under. I think it's going to be a good game for the neutral. And that's where I hang my hat, which is probably no surprise. Scott's going to totally say the opposite to what I've just said.
Well, that's very confident now. I'm liking that, Paul. And just before I forget as well, of course, this podcast will probably be released way after your podcast is released because we are moving to a new feed. Sadly, Say It Again Network are closing down their services, so we are going to move to our own platform. So all the podcasts are in the moment being transferred over to the new feed, and once that is done, we can then start putting out. We've done the Giants, Eagles already. That's not been released yet, so we'll get that out as soon as the new feed's done, and then once that's out, we'll then also get out this one as well. So if you're watching on YouTube and not on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, do check out our Twitter because they will have all the new feed details on there for you. So Scott, over to you for your prediction. Who's going to win this game and why?
Yeah, you're right. I'm going to completely disagree with you, Paul. I'm sorry, man. No, look, what did you say at the start? You got to have faith in your team. I have faith in my team. I'm going to go with a 28-21 Cowboys victory. I believe this one will be high scoring. I believe there will be a touchdown in it, though. Not a field goal, not like a 2 points or something. I think the Cowboys will pull away this time. The Seahawks, they came into gear, you could say, in the third and fourth quarter. I think the Cowboys pull away in the third and fourth quarter, in my opinion. I think it's a slow start. Nerves, maybe Brock and Dak. Let's not act like the nerves won't get to Dak either. It's a big occasion, potentially big as of his career. But I'm going to go with the Cowboys. I'm going to go Cowboys 28-21 victory. I think they're going to win this one. I think the key is intercepting Purdy. So I'm going to say Purdy interception. I'm going to throw that out there. I'm going to say we get to him as well. Micah Parsons sack. I'm also going to say that Dalton Schultz gets a touchdown. And I think that will, because you're going to look at the Cowboys and the 49ers. When I look at Talanoa Hufanga and the safety that they have there and Fred Warner, I mean, these names are so good and they've been so good all season that CD, the potential of CD having a big breakout game, it's tough with these 49ers cornerbacks because they are good and the secondary, it's decent. So I think a sneaky Dalton Schultz where he's maybe blocking on a play but then sneaks off into the corner, I could see that. Also, we saw Marcus Mariota rush for 2 touchdowns when the Falcons did beat the 49ers the last time. So I'm going to say Dak Prescott gets a QB sneak somewhere in there. I wouldn't surprise me. So I'm going to say Dak gets a touchdown, Dalton Schultz gets a touchdown, Cowboys win it 28-21, and we go on to the NFC Championship.
Okay, now for my prediction, I'm going to actually use props. So I'm just going to turn my camera off and just get our props ready.
Sounds intriguing.
I hope it's a cowboy hat.
Right.
You need to drum roll or something.
This is some anticipation right now. This is like being 4th and 1 and the audio cuts off or something.
Right.
Yeah, game pass buffers.
I've got some props. So do I go for the Cowboys or do I go for the 49ers? Now, I've got nothing that represents a bridge. So the best thing I've got is my Steph Curry book. And then I've also got a cowboy. Well, it's like a hat. It looks like a cowboy hat.
There we go.
So that's why I'm telling you, for anyone who's watching on YouTube, who I think is going to win. Now, I actually think, contrary to you two, I think it's going to be a very low-scoring game because I think it's not going to be about Dak and Brock Purdy. For me, it's going to be the story of the game is going to be Micah Parsons versus Nick Bosa. I think it's going to be both quarterbacks. I think they're going to struggle in this game. I can see Brock Purdy letting the occasion get to him, and I think Dak Prescott, as good as he was last week, I can see him struggling once again in the big game. So I think it's going to be a very low-scoring defensive shootout from both teams. I think it's going to be, both basically Micah Parsons, Bosa are going to steal the limelight in this game. So I'm going to go for a scoreline of maybe a 14-10 win for one of these teams. I think it's going to be exciting, tense, but I don't think it's going to be high scoring. Now, am I going to put on the cowboy hat, or am I going to show you the Steph Curry book? So the winner it's going to be the 49ers. They're going to get the win in this game. I think it will be, I can see easily being a defensive touchdown that wins the game, or something like that, or maybe a pick six that seals the game, or even just an interception that seals the game and they kneel down and that's it. So I think there'll be more exciting games. I think the other ones. I think this one will be exciting for how tense it'll be, but I don't think it'll be in any way, for me, in my opinion, a high scoring game. So, but looking forward to it though. I mean, I do start a new job on Monday, so I'm gonna have to try and find a way to watch it. It's an hour commute, so I can watch the first half on Game Pass before the game, before I leave, and then I can then watch it on the train. But looking forward to it, like all the games. It is on at 11:30 in the UK, and then it's I think it's 6:30 Eastern as well for all you American listeners. So I'm looking forward to it very much. Before we do go, actually, there's been some news today in the NFL UK world. They've announced the 3 home teams in the UK, as well as the 2 German teams. So the 2 German teams are the Chiefs and the Patriots. They're the 2 teams playing in Germany. And then the 3 home teams in the UK are the Bills and the Titans in the Tottenham Stadium. I'm looking forward to very much because I'm a big Derrick Henry fan. And then the Jags doing that annual game at Wembley. Now, this is where you two come in. I can see Paul, for all your listeners, he is crossing his fingers because the 49ers do play away to the Jags next season. And then the Cowboys, they play away to the Bills. So are either of you confident of your team playing in London this year? Paul, you've been talking about it a lot on Twitter and to me on private message. Do you think this year, I mean, I think it's been 10 years since you guys last played in London. So do you think this year could be the year that you guys return to London in the UK?
So for clarity, Scott, the 49ers have been working very closely with us, the 49ers FFL UK. We had our first official watch party this season in Leeds for the Falcons game. We had 5 members out at Levi Stadium last weekend, free of charge. 49ers paid for their tickets. Obviously, you had to pay for their own travel. But we're working closely with them. It makes sense, Andy. The 49ers have got the UK marketing rights. They wouldn't have to give up a home game, and they get to play at Wembley Stadium. It's 10 years since we played the Jags. And then I believe that sets us up nicely to play as the home team the year after. Because why give them the international marketing rights? You saw it with Germany, the Chiefs. Yeah. So that's why I've got my fingers crossed, because we've already been assured that if the 49ers come over as a group, the 49ers will work closely with us to get a group allocation of tickets. So we'll all be sat together. So the meet-up at an international game in London would be unreal. You'll see a lot of those flags for the people on YouTube being flown. We're very excited. So yeah, I run the social media for 49FA for UK. I finished work at 12:30 today and opened my phone to a load of notifications, and I was quickly on Twitter tweeting them out. I mean, to be honest, I tweeted it last week, Scott, the whole London baby is a bit of a joke, and loads of people started messaging me for tickets as if I'd broke the news. I was like, I don't work for the NFL yet. It's just something I'm hoping for. But yeah, we're hopeful, obviously being the Jags road team. And equally, my friend who's a Cowboys fan has texted me the same, and I'm in a group chat with him and a Titans fan. So we're saying, how awesome will it be if all 3 of our teams are playing at London this year? So it just shows the excitement the NFL have got in the UK. They drop a tweet like that, and all of us are like, our team's coming across, and you're looking at hotels and travel plans. So yeah, I'm hopeful, Andy.
Yeah, and of course, it could be that their home games include the Titans, which obviously won't be this one, but they could play the Colts, could play the Baltimore Ravens, the Atlanta Falcons, the Bengals, the Panthers, the Chiefs, and the 49ers. And it's very similar actually for the Titans. I mean, they could play basically any of those teams, as well as maybe the Chargers or the Seahawks. But of course, the Bills, their teams could be the Dallas Cowboys and Rams, the Broncos, Giants, Jags, which obviously won't be the case, Buccaneers, Jets, England, and hopefully the Dolphins as well. You have to, I think it's been 2014 since you guys last played in London, if I'm right in saying that. It's been a long time since you guys have played in London. Do you think that this year could be the year they return to UK soil?
The Cowboys.
Yes.
Yeah, I am gonna. I'd love them to. I'd love to go and see them, but I think you look at the Cowboys, and it's not just me pulling random stat out of the air. They are the biggest sporting organization in the world, the biggest sporting franchise in the world. I think if they're gonna go, I think they're gonna go to London. They're gonna go as the home team. And they've so much support globally that I think they would be the home team if they were gonna go. Now, look, if they're the away team, you're looking at ticket sales and selling out. Look, the London games are great. They sell out all the time. But talk about generating hype of two juggernaut teams going up against each other, the Bills and the Cowboys. What a game that's going to be a great game anyway. You throw that in London, oh my gosh, like phenomenal. But I'm not too optimistic. I think it could. I don't think it'll be the Cowboys, but I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would definitely bring the thing. We saw the Packers this season, but last year we saw how in demand that was because they not played before. And I do think that if you had two really good fan bases in the the Bills and the Cowboys, I think that would be like trying to get tickets for Glastonbury. It'll be that hard, and I do think that it will be a tough ask. I mean, I had David Kaposh, who I met in Detroit, a big Bills fan, and I know I made a few friends who are big Bills fans who are from Buffalo, and I'm hoping as many of them can come down as possible because it'll be a nice thing for myself to see them in London. And I think that the Bills Mafia will travel strong. I think it's been a long time since they played in London. I think 2016 was the last time they played in London against the Jags. So I think the Bills Mafia are going to really, and I think it'll be their first game at home as well in London. So I think I think that will be the best game just for atmosphere. And I think it's going to be quite the party. I don't think the Titans are that well followed in the UK. So I think the Bills are going to bring a big UK group. I think they're also going to bring a lot of Buffalo natives and Buffalo fans over to London. And I think it's going to be once again a good year, but another year of trying to get tickets, which I've always been fortunate enough to get tickets for. But at some point my luck's going to run out, and I think that it's going to be another year where it's going to be like trying to get a golden ticket to get tickets there. But
keep the faith.
Yeah, exactly. But that is all to come in future episodes and future months. They haven't even announced which teams they're playing yet, or even what dates these games are. So I think that whatever we look at, I think it'll be a good week, and when you find out who plays who. But that is the conclusion of our second divisional round game preview. So first of all, thank you, Scott, and thank you, Paul, for coming on today.
Appreciate it, big time. Thanks for having me. Great fun. Looking forward to seeing the outcomes of this and how wrong I was in my predictions. They're gonna win, but maybe just not with that score,
And
thanks for having me on, Andy.
Oh, no problem at all, mate. And we'll have one of you on, of course, next week to find out who's going to make it on next week. Watch the game on Sunday on Sky Sports at 11:30 p.m. So I've been Andy. This has been Scott and Paul, and we will see you guys next time.